registering for this week's edition of Pathways to Peace. Pathways to Peace is our congregation's way of speaking to the key issues of the human life so that we can be good stewards of everything: time, talent, treasure, and even our own salvation. So here tonight, we are blessed to have with us some of God's best. We are excited to have with us the legendary, the great, the prolific, and profound, Kenneth Royster. Ken is quite a guy. Following an honorable discharge from the U.S. Army, Ken has built a distinguished career spanning more than 4 decades in financial services and insurance. As president and CEO of First Genesis of Virginia, he leads a skilled team that includes financial representatives Danica Royster, Joshua Anderson, and Kendra Bullock, supported by marketing specialist Kenyatta Royster and office manager Holly Allen. A former honor roll and life member of the MDRT, Million Dollar Roundtable, Ken is also a past president, 2018 and 19, of the Hampton Roads chapter of the Society of Financial Services Professionals. He's an active member of the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors and the Association of African American Advisors, and called AAAA, by the way. Ken holds a bachelor's degree in business management from the University of Phoenix and professional designations from the American College, chartered life underwriter, chartered financial consultant, and retirement income certified professional. He is also a certified life underwriter training council instructor, licensed to sell securities in multiple states, including Delaware, the District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, and South Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. Ken combines deep expertise with a long-standing commitment to helping clients achieve financial success. I could say lots more about him, but one thing I want everybody to know, I am grateful that for Dr. Wanda and our family, for over 35 years, Ken has been a loved and trusted friend. And I will honestly say everything we have right now is because of the wisdom and expertise of Ken Royster listening to the voice of God in our lives. So I want everybody to welcome Ken Royster. If that wasn't good enough, then listen to this. Right here as the midwife, really, of Pathways to Peace, in conjunction with our dynamic Director of Christian Education, Dr. Wanda Wherry. The midwife of this ministry is Reverend Patricia Sims. And Reverend Sims is a devoted member in good standing of the field, Charlotte. She's a member of our associate ministry staff, and she's a 31-year veteran of the U.S. Department of the Treasury, served with distinction in multiple leadership and technical roles, from secretary to tax specialist and instructor for the electronic filing system, and ultimately as a revenue agent auditor. So throughout her exemplary federal career, Reverend Sims earned numerous citations for meritorious service, reflecting her professionalism, integrity, and dedication to excellence. We've seen all of that in her ministry at the field. A lifelong learner, Reverend Sims is committed to being a servant leader, and she's a proud graduate of the historic Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, where she earned the Master of Divinity degree. She's also a certified pastoral caregiver, having completed all the hours of CPE that anybody wants to have, and combining her administrative expertise with a compassionate heart for ministry. This Sunday, I want you all to know Reverend Sims is going to be ordained by the United Missionary Baptist Association, of which our church is a founding member, as a pastor of pastoral care for our church, The Field, where her ministry will continue to embody wisdom, grace, and faithful service to God and community. Don't forget, y'all, as you listen to these phenomenal presenters, knowledge is like a garden. So if not cultivated, it will not produce a harvest. Give them listening ears, prayerful ears. Ken Royster, Patricia Sims, have a wonderful workshop.
Thank you, sir.
Amen. Well, we are so excited that you all are here. I hope you all are coming into the series, and just wanted to ask you all to like, share, if you can, and also, if you have questions, put the questions in the chat. If the questions are personal, you can find out about Ken's social media and contact him directly. So we want to have general questions that's going to come in the chat, and he will answer your questions, but nothing personal, because it would be too much time to do anything personal. But I am excited. I'm excited tonight to know all about what he's going to bring to us tonight. And let's put on our listening ear, and we will present Mr. Kenneth Royster. Here he go.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sims and Dr. Weary. Thank you so much. Reverend Sims, I want to just congratulate you for all that you have done to put this together, but also the fact that you're getting ordained this weekend. That is a wonderful thing. I know you put a lot of effort into your service in the kingdom, and it's evident through me being here today. You've been on top of me, making sure I did all that I was supposed to do to be proper and ready for today. And I appreciate you and I celebrate you today for that. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let me just kind of give a general overview before I pull up the first slide about financial planning and why it's important. So many times in life, there's a term that people use, they call it buttoned up. And they say, I'm all buttoned up. That means I got everything together. I'm good. I'm solid. And then all of a sudden, life happens. Something goes wrong, and people go, oh, they're not buttoned up. They're not so together. There's a whole lot of problems going on. And it's from a lack of planning. Life today, as it relates to finance, is much more complicated than it was for your grandparents. Today, we have retirement accounts, property. We have issues with care. We have issues with siblings. We have issues with extended family care. So many issues that we have to deal with. At the end, they all come down to some kind of economic equation. And what I want to do is kind of set the table tonight with, one, thinking about what I need to be doing. Two, examining where I'm at. And three, starting to formulate a plan of action. So if you can pull up the first slide for me, that would be great. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is what we call a financial pyramid. It's got a base and it's got a peak. Most people, believe it or not, never even get to the peak of the financial planning pyramid, so to speak. And so these are the 6 areas of planning that people need to deal with. The first one is financial position, and that's dealing with your budget and some other things. And I'm going to get more in depth with that. And then risk management is insurance. And most people will dabble and dibble in these 2 things, making sure they got good credit or bad, but at least they know. Okay. The other one is budget. If I told you all that more than 50% of people never actually do a budget, and that most people who come into us as clients have never ever really done a budget. They think they know what their budget is. And when I show them what it really is, they go, wow, I never thought all these things were budget. Well, let me just set the record straight so everyone will know. Whatever you bring in and whatever you put out is all budget. There is no exceptions. And at the end of the day, when people decide to make exceptions is when they have budgetary problems. When you start forgetting what you're spending money on or conveniently not acknowledging it, it becomes a problem. Some people let it become a problem to the point it becomes bankruptcy. And you should not let that ever happen if you're paying attention. But maybe you don't have even the tools to know how to pay attention. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. Risk management, that's pretty basic. You know, you start looking at your insurances and things like that. Most people will focus on one or two insurances, but there's a lot more insurances. And some of you have heard the the phrase insurance poor. I'm going to be insurance poor if I buy too much insurance. Well, if you do a good planning process, one of the things you do is you prioritize your insurance. You buy the right kind of insurance for the right reasons. If you buy the wrong insurance and you pay too much for it, then you can't insure other areas that you need to because the money's not being allocated properly. So I'll talk about that a little bit tonight. Wealth accumulation. There's not one person I ever meet who's not interested in getting more wealth. Everybody wants to get more wealth. The question is, what will they do to get there? What sacrifices are they willing to make? So I'll tell you a quick story. Going back to the financial positioning situation. Years ago, I had a couple that waited late to start planning for their retirement in their 50s. And they knew they were going to have to work till they're 70 to retire. They couldn't retire at 65, just wasn't going to happen. And after doing their budget and so forth, I said to them, to the husband particularly, you have to save your whole paycheck for the next 10 years. Your whole paycheck for the next 10 years. Imagine hearing that from somebody who's a financial professional. You would first say, I can't do that. I got to spend money. Well, in this particular case, I told him, your wife makes enough money to pay all the bills. And she has a retirement and she's going to be secure in her retirement. You will be a burden to her in retirement because you will have nothing planned. So we got to beef you up. So you're going to have to sacrifice for 10 years to get caught up to where your wife is. So y'all can be equal. Now, a lot of folks will say, that's scary. I don't know that I would want to do that. Well, then maybe you want to work forever versus retiring at 70. Because one thing about numbers, they don't lie. The projection is a projection. You don't have to like the projection for it to be true. And if, as I said, keep on living and you'll get there and you'll see why it was important. 10 years after that, I went to his retirement party. And the first thing he said when they asked him to come up and, give his retirement speech, he says, I want Ken Royster to stand up because I would not have retired if this man didn't make me do something. And I didn't like him. He said, I did not like this man telling me to do this thing. He made me save my entire take-home pay for 10 years. So I can stand up here today and have a retirement amount of money that I'm comfortable with, and I can now retire with dignity. This is what financial planning and financial commitment and distinction looks like. The next item you see there is tax planning strategies. Taxes is something that is interesting. You hear a lot of talk on the news where the wealthy are getting tax breaks and the working class people are paying more. Well, that's a function of voting. I tell people, you vote somebody rich into power, okay, they're going to continue to be rich and just more powerful because you put them in there. You put somebody in there who understands the needs of the average person, that's probably the person that you might want depending on your situation. But what's happened is over the last 3 decades, African Americans particularly have increased their wealth tremendously. Now, some people say, well, Ken, not the people I know. Well, I'll say some people might not tell you what they got. They may not share with you how well off they are. They may want you to believe they don't have as much as they have. Okay? But we are increasing our wealth. Now, just as quickly, is we have two societies within our population, haves and have-nots. I'm sorry, you don't have to like that either, but guess what? When people go out, don't educate themselves, don't work like they're supposed to, and don't save like they're supposed to, they end up in a have-not category. And then people who go to school, get a job, work, build families, and save money, they end up being the haves. And as simple as it's rolling off my lips saying, it is that simple. If you go out and start asking people who are not doing well why they're not, I can always tell you it's going to start with education. It's going to start that they're undereducated. This world that we're in rewards people who have degrees in education and does not reward those who don't have them. Now, there's a middle group in there called tradespeople. Tradespeople make good money. They don't have to go to college. They know how to lay brick, lay concrete, put up walls, build houses, fix cars, do plumbing, do electrician, cut hair, do beauty work. Those folks still have to learn their craft and they have to apply it. If they don't, same situation happens. And so taxes then become an issue for those who are earning. A lot of folks who are self-employed, their biggest challenge is taxes because they don't have a payroll system taking withholdings from them like working folks do. And therefore, they have to calculate their own taxes. But what if they're not doing no planning? They're not meeting with a CPA. They're not meeting with a person, a financial planner like myself, who's showing them that, hey, you have to set aside a certain amount for Caesar. The IRS and Reverend Sims, you work there, right? When you owe, you owe.
That's it. It's a pay-as-you-go system.
There you go. And the as-you-go is year by year.
Quarter by quarter.
Right, quarter by quarter, year by year. At the end of the day, you gotta fess up with that 1040, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and all the supporting documents that go with it. And so it's important for those who run their own business to have financial people around them who give them good guidance, okay, so that they don't end up owing more money than they can afford to pay back, okay, or they haven't set aside that money because they were highly profitable and they're just spending all the profits and forgot that Caesar was on the backside looking for his share. Retirement planning strategies, real easy here. Real easy here. When we engage our clients, we always ask them at what age they want to retire. What do you all think the magic number is? 65, 55? Sometimes some of the 25-year-olds come on and say they don't want to work until they're 45. And we ask them about a reality check. Who do they know that's retired at 45? I don't know anybody. I didn't grow up with anybody who retired at 45 years old. Okay, so that's not normal. But 55, I've seen people retire at 55. I've seen people retire at 60, 65, and 70. Okay, a few will have to go to 75, and sometimes that's the case. It just works out that way. If you're healthy and you're able, you do what you got to do. But in retirement planning strategies has a lot to do with putting away money and taking advantage of programs that are out there for you. And the last part, the top of the triangle here is the pyramid here is estate planning strategies. You know, most people don't think they have an estate, but everybody has an estate. Every person has an estate. Everybody has something of value that can be passed on to someone else. Now, again, if you're poor, you won't have an estate. Okay, let's just call it that. If you're homeless, you ain't gonna have an estate. But if you own a home, a car, a bank account, and you're gonna have an estate. Most recently, we had a situation where we had a client who passed away, and there's what we call heir property. That means that their parents had this big old plot of land and carved it up around 7 different children. And some of the children had also passed away. So now their children are also heirs. And no one went to the courthouse every time someone died and redeeded this property. It's a mess. It's a mess because some people want to sell their shares and they can't because they need the permission of others to sell it because they're all in it together. No one person can make a decision without all the others being involved. And that is happening too much. The worst scenario is when somebody passes away and there's an argument over who gets what. Lawyers get involved and lawyers end up getting the majority of the estate versus the people who actually were the inheritors because they fight so long and the meter is running with the lawyers. No flat fee by the hour. So you keep arguing, keep talking, keep arguing, keep talking, and the lawyers are just sitting there going, at some point, we're going to step in and seize the property as ours because of what? The whole family owes the lawyers. Don't put yourselves in that kind of situation. So I'm going to read this caption off to the right here, and where it says, your financial planner will empower you to make informed decisions about your finances, focusing on the 6 areas of financial planning, all of which have an equal impact on a sound financial plan. As I said earlier, most people will go to the first 2 tiers of this pyramid and stop instead of going through all 6 areas and having all 6 areas examined. And so now I'm going to take you into some depth about these 6 areas. Next slide, please. So let's talk about that financial position. Okay. That's looking at cash reserve levels and cash reserve strategies. Let me start there. How much money do you think you're supposed to have saved? How much money are you supposed to have saved? 3 months to 6 months of living expenses. 3 months to 6 months of living expenses. Well, how do I know what that number is if I don't have a budget? I just save whatever I can save without any real target. You want to have your cash reserve level. Your cash reserve strategy can come multiple ways. It can come through direct savings. It can come through your insurance policies. It can come through your retirement account. Okay. But regardless of which strategy you choose, you need to be there. So start working towards 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. It may take you a few years to get there, but don't be negligent and do nothing about it. Start working on that. Debt management. You cannot owe more money than what you have. You cannot owe more money than what you have. Now, there's going to be some situations where that's going to happen, despite your best efforts. And that's normally people who have to finance student loans. Student loans don't have any equity position. They're all 100% debt. Unlike a car or a house where that debt is leveraged against a piece of property or an object like a car, it's leveraged. So you're not fully upside down in that situation. But on student loans, you're fully upside down. Credit cards, fully upside down. Any loan situation where there's not a collateral tied to it, you are immediately fully upside down in that situation. So you don't want to find yourself borrowing a bunch of money for things that have no value. That's hard to do. It's hard to do for some people because they like to look nice. So they say, I'm going to go out and charge clothes that I can't afford. I'm going to go out and eat meals that I can't afford and charge them on my card. And there's no value coming back for that. Nobody wants your clothes, and nobody wants a meal that you've already consumed. So you got to watch your debt. The next one is cash flow management. That means money that's going in and out. I want to make sure I'm directing my money to things that are important to me, like insurance, retirement savings, investments. I want to make sure I'm doing that. If I'm doing that versus just consuming, I'm going to be way better off. Remember, this is not a race in 1 year or 1 month. This is a lifetime of behavior. So if you're younger, it's the best time to institute these changes now, versus if you're older, it's probably going to be too late to make a lot of changes. Okay? But normally people, as they get older, get wiser, and they've already been through enough disappointment with their finances at a young age with the bad management to now have adapted some of the good management. Net worth. Net worth means here's everything I have of value minus what I owe against it. I should have positive net worth. Now, in this country, African Americans have 42 cents to every $1 of white wealth. That's not by accident. That's because you started off in slavery. Okay? If you start off with nothing and somebody has a 400-year head start on you, it's pretty hard to get even. I tell folks, I don't like this closing the racial wealth gap theory. It's going to take 400 years for that to happen. I'd rather a person close their own personal financial wealth gap during their lifetime, one family at a time. You can do that. You can't change the whole world, but you can change your home situation yourself. Discretionary income. That means money that is not accounted for to be spent on life issues. Now, what do you think most people do with their discretionary income? You think they save and invest it, or they find a reason to spend it? I have people come to me what I call premeditated spending, where they address an issue like their income tax refund. Before they even get it, they already have pre-spent it. And I just simply say, can we just agree? How about we just save half of the income tax refund that you get every year? Would that be all right? To start. That way you don't premeditate that spending. The same thing with they get a pay raise. How about if you didn't already say, I'm going to spend my pay raise, I'm going to save and invest it? That's how you get to a higher wealth equation quicker. Expected large inflows and outflows. Sometimes air conditioning units go out at people's houses. Sometimes your car breaks down. Sometimes a family member needs some support and you agree that you're going to help them. That normally is a large outflow. But the other side is that sometimes people die and they leave you something. Sometimes you get a promotion and it's a major promotion, or you get a job that's paying twice what the last one that you had because you were doing something to either get yourself in a better position to get the better job, and you got it. Those are good things. Those are all great things that happen. And lastly is the lines of credit. You have to know how to leverage credit. You know, when you're working with a financial professional, one of the things they'll show you is how to leverage credit. You can leverage credit in such a way, believe it or not, where you can actually build an investment portfolio and use your own investment portfolio to borrow for money for things that you need to acquire. And whether it's property or whether it's sending your kids to college, you can actually do that with your own investment account without having to liquidate your investment. But you got to be working with a professional for that. Protection planning. I'm going to hit 5 hot areas on protection planning right off the bat. Number one, the one that everyone knows about, is life insurance. Somebody dies in the family, we need to have life insurance to replace that person's income. That's the number one thing with life insurance: replace the person's income. Some people will tell you, what amount of life insurance should I have? At least 10 times the person's earnings. So if you're married, my husband makes $70,000 a year, $100,000 a year, I should have $700,000 to $1 million of life insurance on him. Or my wife makes that same difference. Some people ask, well, what about the children? You can add children to most policies, for one premium covers all the children. Sometimes people go out and buy policies for their children at a higher rate than they pay on themselves. That's what I talked about before, about money misplaced. You don't buy more life insurance on a child than you do on the adult. Just don't do that. The next big one is medical and health insurance. You hear the talk now, the Democrats say that they're holding out for signing the continuing resolution for the opening government up because they believe that medical premiums are going to skyrocket for those who are on subsidies through the Obamacare or through the ACAC. What I'll share with you is this: if you work at an employer and they offer health insurance, you should be on it. If you don't and you have to buy your own health insurance, you should buy it. One thing is, if you don't have health insurance, the other part of it is you won't go to the doctor. And then when you don't go to the doctor, you end up with conditions that affect your ability to buy other insurances like life insurance or disability insurance. So you got to make sure you're taking care of your health. So make sure you have health insurance at all costs. Do that. Disability insurance. Disability insurance is the kind of insurance that pays if you can't work. You get sick or you have an accident and you can't work. You want to make sure that you have disability coverage, particularly when you're younger. When you get older, you want to look at long-term care insurance, okay, to pay in the event that you end up in a facility or needing nursing care at your home. Right now in the United States, we're in what we call a long-term care epidemic. That means that if an incident happens where a person has to be taken care of, and I don't know anyone who hasn't been impacted by it, the cost of care can be as much as $200 to $300 a day for a person to be taken care of. And it's not medical care. It's somebody to look after you. You know, make sure you get up and get dressed in the morning. Make sure you get a bath. Make sure you get to the bathroom when you can't get there on your own. Make sure that your house is clean. Those type of things all are part of the long-term care epidemic issue that people are facing in the country. Now I want to talk about property insurance. Again, you have homeowners and you have your auto and you have boat if you have it, and you might have even some rental property. You want to make sure your properties are all insured to value to a certain level and kind of go from there. Again, whoever your property and casualty specialist is, make sure they're doing an annual review of your insurance, that you're not paying too much for that. Property and casualty insurance is a commodity. That means you have to have it, but you only should pay a certain rate for it. You should always be shopping to make sure. Between Geico, between Liberty Mutual, between State Farm, Progressive, Allstate, all of them are screaming at you for your business. But the problem is for you is that you need to check and make sure which of them giving you the best deal, because there is no one company that gives the best deal every single year. They have rate increases based on their loss experiences. And so when those loss experiences are bad, they raise rates for everybody, not just for the ones who are filing claims. And most people get upset about this. I'm filing no claims. How come my insurance is going up? Because other people are filing claims. That's why your insurance is going up. And if you haven't noticed, we're having a lot of catastrophic issues in this country, from fires to storms. And when these storms and fires happen, again, insurance companies have to pay for some of these damages. And so therefore, we're at risk. I'm going to move on now to the investment plan. How am I doing with time?
Minutes?
How am I doing with time?
You got about 20 minutes?
About 20 minutes. Beautiful. Okay. Investment planning. Tell me who doesn't want to get rich.
I have a question about long-term care insurance.
Go right ahead.
So what age should a person be to take out long-term care insurance?
The ideal age is 50. But if you work at a job and your employer offers long-term care as an employee benefit, I don't care what age you are, you should buy it, because you're going to be buying it at the lowest possible rates. And normally employer rates are cheaper than street rates.
Okay.
But the optimum age that we look at is 50. 50 to 55 is what we call ideal. Once a person gets over 60, the rates start getting prohibitive. Once you're at 70, most people can't afford the policy unless they are already somewhat wealthy.
Another question, what do you think about these insurance that's $9.95 per month? If you're older and you haven't really saved up, bought insurance, is those insurance a good plan?
Those insurance plans are good if you cannot acquire insurance from someone else. That is what we call a worst case scenario, last ditch effort policy. People who buy those policies are going to pay $9.95. Okay, they say that's their going rate, no matter what. But the truth is, how much insurance am I getting for $9.95? I'll share with you that if you are buying any insurance that's less than $10,000, most people have that amount of money on their credit card that they could access to pay for a funeral, much less having to pay for a policy that's not going to pay much. I like to see most people, particularly when they're younger, buying $250,000 and up of life insurance to start building legacy with life insurance with their family. If they're older and they're looking at final expense, that's what really that $9.95 is a final expense policy. That money's going right into the ground for a funeral. You have to be careful, because if you pay that policy normally more than 10 years, you're going to end up paying more to that insurance company than you're going to get as benefit. So you got to really watch those plans. If you think you're going to die in 3 years, it's a good buy, because nobody else would insure you thinking that you're going to die in 3 years. But if you know you're going to die in 3 years, you should buy one of those plans, because you'll end up getting a benefit greater than what you paid for. But if you're going to live past 10 years, I will tell you, you're going to pay more for that plan than you're ever going to get out in benefits. Any other questions?
That's it for right now.
Okay, so I'm moving into investment planning. As I said before, people want to learn how to get rich. The first thing you have to do is commit. You have to commit to a dollar amount of money that I'm going to put in every single month towards building my wealth. I don't care whether it's $25 a payday, whether it's $100 a month. Commit something and stick with it. You will build wealth that way. You will build wealth that way. So you'll see there's a button. There's a button there that says dollar cost averaging. That's what I'm speaking of. When you buying shares, you buy them at different prices at different points. You put the money in. Do not pay attention to what the investment is doing early. It won't matter. You don't have enough money in there to be worried about that. What you want to do is build it up. So imagine if you put $100 a month into an investment. You go from 3 figures investor to 4-figure investor in 1 year. In 5 years, you go from 4 figures to 5-figure investor. You keep going 10, 20 years, you're at 6-figure investor. The hardest leap is going from a 6-figure investor to a 7. That's going from 100,000 to 1 million. That's the hardest one. All the other ones are easy. Getting to 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000 is pretty easy if you start early and consistent. But getting from 100,000 to 1,000,000, that's the hardest leap ever. Most of my clients end up landing about $500,000 to $1,000,000. I have some wealthy clients that are over $1,000,000, but average working people, 500,000 is kind of where they're landing at their retirement, and they're feeling really good about that. And they're thanking me for getting them started. As Dr. Weary said, I started doing this 40 years ago. So I've been working with people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s for a number of years. So they've seen the fruit of their labor. And by the way, I don't take any credit for people getting rich, because it starts off with personal discipline. And that's putting money in there, into the investment. I'm not going to cover everything in this chart because it's a lot, but you definitely want to look at 529 plans if you have young children. If you're an older a grandparent, it's a great way to give a gift to some of your grandchildren, is start setting them up 529 plans so that they're not burdened with student loans when they get older. And you can fund, believe it or not, almost 50% of a child who's just born. A grandparent could fund as much as 50% of their college if they got started early in a plan. And a lot of folks who look back say, wow, nobody talked to us about setting up plans for our education. They talked about saving money, but not really for college, because the cost of college is expensive. And so you need a real good strategy for that. So let's just say you don't have any money dedicated for children, no money dedicated for retirement. It's time now to start. So I see a question here. Is a high yield savings account better than a 529 account or a Roth IRA? So let me tell you, those are three different things. So there's not one is better than the other. They're three different things. A high yield savings is for that cash reserve portion, is what I spoke to you about earlier. That's what a high yield savings account is for. A 529 is for sending a child to college. And a Roth IRA is for retirement. So there's not that one is better than the other. It's just three different things for three different separate issues. So based on your situation, if I'm looking to build my cash reserves, I want to save a high yield savings. If I'm looking to build money for my child to go to college, I want a 529. And a Roth IRA is a great way of building a tax-free retirement. So all three are good, not one better than the other. They are appropriate depending on your situation. All right, let me move into some more on investment planning. Risk tolerance, very important. Older folks who got a lot of money are going to be what we call more risk adverse. Young people, you should be absolutely risk tolerant. You shouldn't be worrying about the market going up and down. You should be worrying about fueling the fire in the market. How many of you know that today the stock market hit another all-time high? We have been programmed to do safe investments and not get rich. That's horrible. That's mostly because we don't have enough people who look like us, who are in the financial services business, who are talking to us about wealth accumulation and showing us that the fear that we're looking at really is not there. What we should be looking at is having a diverse portfolio that can get us through good times and bad times, and understanding that time in the market versus time in the market are two different things. So you want to be in the market long term. Anyone who's been a long-term investor has averaged double-digit returns over their lifetime versus savers who've averaged small single digits between 2 and 3% versus somebody making 10 to 12% long term. And as I tell folks, you don't have to believe you're going to live a long life. Just stick around and we'll see. And you'll see the number of seniors is growing and growing and growing. All right, tax planning strategies. What you want to look at is tax reduction, tax deferral, and tax avoidance. Those are the three things that I'm going to look at. Tax reduction. How do I reduce my taxes? I reduce my taxes by not investing and selling investments early. If I buy an investment and I redeem it in less than 12 months, I'm going to pay ordinary income tax. If I keep it for longer than 12 months, I only pay what they call capital gains rates, which is going to be 10 to 15%. Also, tax reduction strategies are through your payroll. If I have a 401k, a 403b, or 457 plan that's available to me through my employer, or a simple IRA or a simple plan through my employer, and I'm not participating, I'm paying full freight of taxes on my money, and I'm not getting any advantage from that. Tax deferral, things like life insurance contracts where money grows tax deferred. You buy mutual funds, ETFs, or stocks. As long as you don't sell the shares appreciate. You don't pay taxes until you redeem those. So that taxes is deferred. And lastly is tax avoidance. Tax avoidance, again, is not doing things like taking money out of retirement plan before you're 59 and a half. You're going to pay penalties and taxes. You can avoid that by not doing that. With your life insurance policy, instead of withdrawing money, you can take loans against your policy. And if you have gains, if you take a withdrawal and you have gains, you have to pay taxes on it. Avoid it by taking a loan instead. Because people say, well, Ken, if I'm borrowing, then I got to pay the loan interest. Okay, the loan interest is normally going to be 5 or 6%. Taxes are 20%. You decide for yourself which one you would rather pay. Okay, and most people will say I'd rather pay the interest on the insurance policy. And if I repay the loan, then that stops. With your 401k plans and 403b plans, they have loan provisions. You can actually borrow against them. The beautiful thing about that is the interest that you pay on those go back into your own account. And that's a very efficient way to leverage money as well. I'm going to move into retirement planning. Talk to me about how much time I got. I got 2 topics I got to cover. How much time I got left?
About 15 minutes.
Oh, shucks, I'm doing well. All right. Retirement planning. Remember, I started off saying that people pick an age that they want to retire. Well, I'm going to ask you to go a step further. I'm going to ask you to have a retirement analysis done, where somebody takes a look at what your expenses are going to be in retirement and how much income you're going to have in retirement to meet those expenses. Most people, when retired, their income is less than when they're working. Newsflash. Except for those who took advantage of the earlier strategies I spoke of about the investment planning and the financial positioning. They created wealth by what? Not spending more than what they make, taking their excess and investing it. They created accounts. Remember, I talked to you about that $500,000. Well, if I have $500,000 of my own money going into retirement and I make only 5% earnings on that money every year, that's $25,000. That's more than most people get in Social Security. Most companies aren't even paying a pension anymore. You would have created your own pension if you, again, did these things earlier on that we discussed. Now, I do run into folks from time to time who are in their 60s, and they say, Ken, I've accumulated some money, but I don't know how I'm going to manage it in retirement. Well, that comes back down to here where we said we look at income streams and income stream transitions. When you have your own money, one of the great things about having your own money is you decide how much you need to spend at different times. So let's say you go into retirement and you have some debt that's overshadowing you into retirement. And you say, if I just get this debt paid for, I'll be all right. Well, if you then look at your strategy and say, oh, I'm going to deploy a certain dollar amount to eliminate this debt over the next 2 or 3 years. And then therefore I'll have more income to spend in the later years. So I may have to draw down a little bit more than I would normally early in retirement so that I can have more later in retirement. It's just really being strategic. All right.
Question.
The issue. Okay, go ahead.
So for a financial planner, how much money would somebody have to come to invest, for you or whoever to invest their money?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Okay. Let me just say this. I don't know any African-American advisors who are going to turn down somebody regardless of what they want if they say they're trying to improve their financial situation. I will just tell you on the other side of it, there are colleagues of mine who are of different persuasion. They say if you don't have $250,000, they're not going to talk to you. So that's a matter of practice. Again, our firm is deeply rooted in the African American community, and so we make it our business to help everybody who needs to be helped. And so we don't put a dollar limit on it like that. We simply say, if you are serious about getting your financial house in order, we're going to help you. So we don't have a minimum, but there are some people who might say you have to have 50,000, you have to have this. It doesn't take much more than $100 to start an investment program. Okay. It's just really your commitment. Nobody wants to talk to somebody and what's the word I call playing around with their future. Don't call me if you ain't certain that you really committing to doing something for yourself, because that's a waste of everybody's time. But if you're committed, I don't care what you have, you're committed, we're going to help you. Okay. So that's important. If it's not me, if I'm you all out there, I would put the same question to anybody who wants to talk to me. Same thing with your insurance agent. If you got an insurance agent and all they want to do is sell you insurance and doesn't want to help you do the rest of the stuff, you probably got the wrong person. You need somebody who wants to help you with all these areas of planning. And they have to be willing to work with you through all these areas of planning. And, it's up to you to find that person that is going to do that for you. Otherwise, as I said, you'll only get 1 or 2 tiers done, and then you'll get to the end and you'll be frustrated that you're not having everything that you're supposed to, because over the last 20 and 30 years, the issues were not addressed. They have to be addressed early on and kind of go through that. Again, Dr. Weary mentioned, the number of years that we've known each other and so forth. That's a work in progress, right? You start with somebody somewhere and you take them as far as you can take them all the time, and they got to be committed. And that's one thing that happens. I hope I answered that question. All right.
You did, and we've got about 7 minutes. Okay.
So Social Security plays a major part. Medicare and Medigap insurance. Again, remember, you got to have your insurance. So if you're 64 years old, at 64 and a half, you need to be out looking at this Medicare, because in a few months you'll be turning 65, and you want to know what your options are early, not at the last minute. Early, 6 months in advance, you should be examining your Medicare and your Medigap options. Okay, there's a lot of options out there. Open enrollment is going to be right around the corner for Medicare. But once you become eligible, that's your open enrollment, is when you turn 65. But you got 6 months in advance to get ahead of it and start looking at that. Last but not least is estate planning strategies. I mentioned earlier to you all about losing wealth. I did a workshop at my church probably 3 months ago and shared with them that $68 million a year of African-American wealth is lost due to poor estate planning. That means that we don't have wills in place, trusts in place. We don't have insurance the right way it's supposed to be. And we haven't decided who's going to get what, and it's a mess. We have to stop being secretive about our finances with our family members. If you're older on the call, you need to be sitting down with your children and sharing with them what you have. Don't make your children go rifling through drawers and trying to find stuff. The other part of it is that assets that belong to people and they don't even know it. Lost. Don't pay taxes on a piece of property that was willed to your family, and it ends up getting sold on the courthouse steps to somebody who was just simply waiting, and they bought your family's property for just the taxes. We don't want that to be anybody's case. We want to make sure we're looking out for our businesses, that we have a business succession plan. If we have children in our business, we should not be giving our children our business. We should be selling our business to our children using bank money, and they taking a loan and paying that back through the proceeds from the business, and therefore creating multi-generational wealth through the business. So many of our businesses have failed after one generation because we gave it to someone afterwards. They didn't know how to run it. They had no vested interest in it, and they let it collapse. We should not be doing that. Okay. Someone said, define Medigap. Medigap is Medicare supplements. So Medicare Part A and B only cover so much. And there's a gap after that for coverage. And there's policies that you can buy that cover those gaps. They call them Medigap, or they call Medicare supplements. Hopefully that answered that question. How are we doing on time?
It's another question about Social Security.
Okay.
If there's a full age Social Security, and all the talk in the media today about Social Security, do you think it'll be around for a long time? And also, if a person is already full-time Social Security age, but they can wait till they're 70 to collect their Social Security, is that a good idea because of the interest that they will get on that money?
Let me just tell you this. At this stage of financial planning, once you get around 65 and to 67, which is now the full retirement age, there is not much difference in the benefit, but there's certainly a big difference in waiting. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone who is Social Security eligible at 62 and can get $2,000 a month, but if they wait until they were 67, would get $3,000 a month. So that's 5 years of waiting, right? At $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. Over 5 years, that's over $100,000. It's going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 to 15 years to make up that money if you wait. So if I'm 67, 13 years gets me to 80. When I'm 65, it gets me to 78. If longevity is not in my family, I should not be waiting to take my Social Security because I'm going to be losing money. It's going to take 13 years to get even to what I had given up. So you have to do an examination of that. As I said, people who have money can wait because it's a mathematical equation. It's a time value of money equation. But those who don't have a lot of money, they're not going to be able to make up that $100,000. They're not going to be able to make it up generally in their lifetime. So that dollar today is probably worth more than it is 13 years down the road to them. So hopefully that answered that question on that. But it's individual situation, need to look at it and count it. And you also got to be mindful of the person's health at that point.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This was just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to have you back next month on the 17th, and we're going to go more in depth of what we're going to be talking about. So you all who are on this line, make sure you have your questions ready for this young man so he can answer them. And I mean, this has been so good. I mean, we need more time. We need more time.
So today we gave the big broad view. Now we're going to start to focus in on some of the areas, individual areas, not so broad. But I wanted everybody to get a feel for the fact that financial planning is a big deal. It's a big deal. And it requires a lot of depth, a lot of looking at, and you got to have someone who's committed to you, who's going to do it for you. That's the key piece. Okay. I don't expect people to be able to do this by themselves. I don't do brain surgery. I don't fix my car, and I don't do electrical work. Okay. So I get people to do that for me. It's amazing to me that people don't treat their finances with the same amount of attention. You have to, because your economic empowerment is resting on that every single day. And you want to be able to teach your children how to be better stewards going forward based on what you've done. They'll be proud that when something happens to you, they inherit, oh, my mom and dad did well by me. Versus someone saying, is there going to be enough to pay for the funeral? Or doing a GoFundMe for a funeral. That should never happen in today's society, but it still is. And it's because of lack of planning.
So, Mr. Royster, how can people find you, and what's your social media addresses?
Okay, so again, I'm on LinkedIn, Kenneth Royster on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. It's First Genesis of Virginia on Facebook. You see my email there, Kenneth@firstgenesisva.com, and that's my office number. And then we have a website, www.firstgenesisva.com. So tune into that. We also have a YouTube channel that'll be posted up soon as well for you go on. Matter of fact, my daughter, Danica, and one of our associates, Kendra, are going to be doing a segment on long-term care this month. Okay, because long-term care month is coming up. And we're having a lot of issues around it. I have to tell you, I told you we're in an epidemic in this country. Every month we have somebody that we're finding in a long-term care situation that's either a client of ours or a family member of a client of ours. It's serious business and it costs a lot. It costs a lot. And so we want to get people prepared as much as we can. We want families to understand how to navigate. And for those of you out there who will say, I don't need long-term care, my children will take care of me, I would just simply tell you, ask your children tonight if that's what their plans are. And if they tell you no, then it's your fault. When you feel like you're being abandoned by your children, it's because you made a decision without any input. You need to get input from your children to find out what they do. Your child lives in California, you're in North Carolina. You can't ask them to leave their home in California and come and take care of you at your house. You have to get prepared for that yourself. So we want to make sure that people are attentive to that as well. Again, there's a lot of issues out here that are facing us, okay? But we can get solutions. I use the theme, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. You take on one of these issues at a time, and you keep on going there. As an old preacher would say, you got to be able to see Jerusalem and start walking your way to it.
And Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is servant to the lender. So
That's
we're
right.
going to end with that. And Pastor?
Thank you.
Thank you all for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to doing it again.
We'll see you next month.
All right.
Thanks, Brother Ken. Appreciate
All right.
you. God
All right.
bless everybody. Spread the word. November 17th.
Yes.
All right.
Good
Talk
night,
to you.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.